Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so hopefully everybody out there is doing good. Happy New Year to you guys, wherever you guys are at. For all my guys, all my people in the, well, not guys, all my people in the Philippines. Maraming Salamat Kaibagan. Appreciate you guys coming through. Kamusta to you. And all of my people from Azerbaijan that might be watching, salam to you. And for all my people in Armenia, I just learned this word, so just forgive me. Okay, Vagjuven to you. If you're from Armenia, and I said that incorrectly, feel free to correct me. That's something I like doing, is going back and forth with everybody from around the world, attempting to speak their language and having them kind of fine tune and tweak it. At the end of the day, that's how you get better. So I appreciate that very much. As always, at the end of the video, I have those chess puzzles for you, for all those diehard chess fans. And of course, as always, if you haven't already subscribed, please do. Appreciate that very much, guys. You guys are doing really good so far. I've gotten a lot of subscriptions. I'm inching ever closer to my 1,000. But yeah, if you guys are ready to go, like I said, I have Levon Aronian and Teimour Radjabov. They are fighting for the championship. They are the two left in the final, and as you guys know, Daniil Dubov and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave are fighting for the third place spot. Yeah, if you guys are ready, let's take a look and see what we have for this game. All right, bam. So we have E4. All right, so we have E5, so knight to F3, knight to C6. We have bishop to B5. So the Roy Lopez, as you guys know, one of the oldest openings in the history of chess. We have knight to F6, so we have the Berlin defense, the dreaded Berlin. Now, a majority of the time, it is drawn. It's a pretty drawn opening, but there can be some life in it. There can be some life in it either way. So it's not that it's always been drawn. Every now and then somebody squeaks out a win. And so we see castles, and of course, like I always say, this isn't giving away the pawn. The pawn is going to get taken back. So we see D4. After knight takes E4, we see D4. Knight to D6. Bishop takes C6. We have pawn takes C6. We have pawn takes E5. Knight to F5. Queen takes D8 with check. King takes D8. Only move. And we do see H3. So we're following down some lines that I've shown before. So a lot of you guys that watch my stuff, this should be familiar to you. This is one of the kind of the rarer lines, but it has some legitimacy to it, because as you guys will see coming up, rook to D1 will be played, and then after the knight moves somewhere, probably to E7, you don't want to see any bishop to G4 situations coming, because those can get pretty annoying. So we just hit H3 just to make sure that we have no problems. So we have bishop to D7. We have rook to D1, like I was saying. We have king to C8. And we have G4. And of course, the knight's going to back up to E7. And so, both sides playing pretty standard. This is a little bit of a rarer line, going king to C8. But at the end of the day, regardless if you go this way or you go this way, you're going to be pretty much blocking in one of your rooks. So you're going to have to try to create a way for one of those to come out anyway. So you do have knight to G5, and of course bishop to E8, and you have F4. So it's fairly even. White is actually doing slightly better, probably like plus 0.3 or plus 0.4 or something like that. So they're doing pretty good for their opening. All right, so we have C5, and we have knight to C3, and we have B6, and so of course we're trying to make this structure. It is a little bit inferior to white's structure, because as you can see, white's structure has the nice sound pawns, and black does have doubled pawns. So this is just about as ideal of a setup as you can have, to try to make the structure as strong as possible. And plus, you want to try to see at some point, your bishop coming out and stuff. So, that's definitely giving your light square bishop some room to navigate here. So we see F5. And we see knight to C6. And we have bishop to F4. And I think I actually skipped it. No, I haven't skipped it. I thought I skipped the novelty. I was like, no. Okay, cool. So we do have knight to D4. we do have knight to d4, and okay, and so we've come to like a pretty critical position here, and it's very easy to make a mistake. Now, of course, a lot of you guys probably might be thinking, you know, you need to defend this pawn here because it's under attack, but it's not really a true gambit of a pawn, because even though you gambit the pawn, you would be bringing the rook over. So you have a lot of pressure on this c file if you can try to open it up. So it's not that bad. It's actually really good for white here. So like I said, you pretty much have two possibilities here. Of course, one was played in the game, and so you have king to excuse me, you have king to f2, or you have e6 here, and one of them is considerably better than the other. So what was played in the game was actually king to f2. But unfortunately, king to f2, it allows the novelty of the game, which is h6. And even though it's a novelty, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, h6 is like, you have to get that knight out of g5. So this is like probably one of the most natural moves you can make in the position. Like I said, even though it is a novelty, it's a lot of times when I'm doing games and I'm looking at what the novelty is, because the move just seems so natural to make. And then a lot of the times the novelty can be like probably the most like logical move in the position. So it's always shocking to me when I find a novelty that's like such a natural move, because it's like you want to knock the knight away, you know. But anyway, like I said, king to f2 does allow it does allow h6, knocking that knight away. And then now the knight has to retreat. So, you know, of course you have knight either to e4 or to either to e4 or f3. Bam, let's do that. Okay, cool. So, you know, you have to retreat the knight, and then it makes knight takes c2 just a little bit worse. So actually you are kind of giving the pawn away now after this. So if we just go back to after knight to d4, a much better continuation would have actually been e6. And now, of course, as black, you're going to want to play f6. And then after knight to f7, bishop takes f7, pawn takes f7. You're going to probably want to go bishop to d6. After bishop takes d6, pawn takes d6, we have knight to e4, trying to tickle that pawn. And so after d5, we have knight back to c3, and then we have h5. And so after knight takes d5, pawn takes h4, or g4, pawn takes g4, you have rook to f8. After king to f2 now, rook takes f7, and then you have c3. And as you can see, it's pretty dead even for both sides. You know, the knight is going to have to try to find its way to somewhere. But this is considerably better than what is actually played in the game. So after, like I said, king to f2, we have h6, knight to f3. Knight does take c2. And now, unfortunately, it's almost kind of like you wasted a tempo with the king, because now you really just kind of gave away a pawn. And after rook a to c1, you have knight to b4, a3, knight comes back to c6, and the knight has pretty much accomplished his mission. You know, the knight has basically came here. Oops. It's basically came here, snapped the pawn, retreated, and is all the way back pretty much to its home. And so, you know, white doesn't really have a lot to show for just kind of losing the pawn. The only thing, like I said before, they do have is the fact that their structure is a little bit better, but now they are down a pawn. So, you know, these three pawns here are, even though they're doubled, it's kind of jumbled up, I mean, it's a lot better than just having the two pawns. And as you'll see later, it's considerably better. Okay, so we do have knight to d5, and we have knight back to e7. So we have knight to e3, knight back to c6. We have f6. f6 is super ambitious, because there's not really a way for you to really crack open this structure with a pawn break. Because, I mean, you just really have the ability just to, like, completely stop it. So for those of you out there that want to go ahead and pause the video and see if you can see what nice counter move black has in the position. If you get it right, but once I show you the actual answer, I'll be able to show you the contrast between, like, the way that actually plays out and the way that it plays out in the game. So like I said, if you want to go ahead and stop it real quick and see what black has here as a nice little counter move, go ahead. Bam. Okay, cool. So for those of you that noticed that there is no en passant on g5, congratulations. you know the rules of en passant. You know, this move here, g5, cannot be en passant by this pawn because it is not sitting on this square. So, like I said, so we do have bishop to d7 in the game. So just to run through some of the moves for you. So we have bishop to d7 in the game. We have b4. We have g5 now. We have bishop back to g3. And then we have bishop to e6. That was actually played in the game. But if we go back to what we had, if you go g5 first, back the bishop up to g3, you could actually play knight to d8. And then after knight to d5, you can plop the knight down in a good outpost square here on e6. But what you've done as a major difference is you freed this bishop up to come and just kind of reign supreme on this diagonal here. So it's like you can put it here, you can put it here. So as you notice, all of these squares here that you have for this bishop is considerably better than what we ended up having in the game, because you saw the bishop, you know, was only able to come to just this one square. And so it just kind of liberated the bishop a little bit more. So it was considerably better. It's considerably better. But, I mean, this definitely wasn't a bad way to go about it here. So we do have rook to d3, king to b7. We have rook d to c3. We have rook to d8. We have knight to f5. We have a5. We have b5. Knight to a7, and we have a4. And unfortunately, what this kind of does is not only are you down a pawn as white, but it allows this structure, this pawn structure, to be just like chopped away. And, you know, it also allows black the ability to basically fix one of its only problems in the position, which is its queenside pawn structure. So you have c6 that comes, and then after pawn takes c6, knight takes c6. As you can see, the position for black is horribly superior to white. You know, they basically stopped any kingside counterplay, and then they have a 3-to-1 pawn majority on the queen side. If it was just these pawns and this pawn was gone, let's just cover that with the rook. This pawn was gone, that would be fine. But because you have this, it's considerably worse, and you have the ability to start trying to get these pawns rolling at some point. So you see king to e2. Knight comes to b4, which is like the most perfect outpost I've probably ever seen in a chess game. No, I'm playing. But it's nice. I mean, as you can see, this knight is literally never going anywhere. That's its home. So rook comes to d1. You have rook takes d1, king takes d1. You have knight to d5. And you have knight to a3. And you have c4. Passed pawns must be pushed at the end of the day. And so, I mean, that's just, you know, this position is just getting just worse and worse and worse for Aronian. And so we have knight to d6, bishop takes d6, pawn takes d6, which seems like it should be good because now you have a passed pawn. The pawn is literally never going anywhere. You do have rook to d8, which easily just like blockades the pawn. You have bishop to e5. You have knight back to b4. You have bishop back to g3, and you have knight to d3. So as you can see, this black knight is literally outposting itself everywhere. Just literally everywhere in the position. And then it could have outposted itself here. So you see that black has like a million outpost possibilities for their knight. And so we see knight to d4, bishop back to d7. We see king to d2, rook to e8, you know, taking over the only open file in the position. You have knight to c2, knight to c5. And as you can see, this pawn cannot be guarded ever. This rook is the only one that's guarding it, and it's not a good piece to just throw away for a pawn. So you have rook to e3, trying to, you know, force a trade. So you have rook to e4 with check. You have king to c1. Knight takes g3, so we don't even take the pawn first. We take the bishop first and introduce a trade of rooks. And so we see rook takes g3, rook to e6. And so as you see, you're still not taking the pawn. The pawn is like, Radjabov was like, you know what? I can take the pawn like at any point in the future. I'm going to go ahead and just like do in an abusive move and just move the rook in the middle. And let's try to take these pawns. It kind of reminds me of something like if I'm playing a bullet game with somebody and I just don't really like them for whatever reason, I'm going to try to take all their pieces. And I've done that before. I've left people with 0 pieces. Like if I'm mad at anything, or if we played a series of games and I just don't really care for the person that much, I'll literally like try to leave them with only a king if they'll allow me. Like, so I'll basically look at it like you need to resign. You need to resign before you can allow me to do that. But some people don't. So anyway, we do have rook to c3. trying to get any type of counterplay. The rook takes on f6. The rook takes on c4. We have rook takes d6. We have king to b2, and we have rook to d3. And it is actually in this position that Levon Aronian does resign. There's just literally nothing to do. One of the only probably possibilities that you can ever like dream of trying to do would be rook here. But after rook takes, king takes, bishop takes, I mean, there's just you're down 3 pawns. And you know, in an open position, you also have the bishop for black. And so this is like, I don't even know what the computer would even evaluate this at. It's the computer would have to be saying this is like +7 or 8. Like, I mean, and just growing. So anyway, like I said, that was the game. And getting to the chess puzzle that I gave you guys last time, it is a, I forgot what it was even, what it even, I think it was a clearance sacrifice. Yeah, so we do have rook takes c6. Queen takes c6. Queen takes c6 with check. We have pawn takes c6, and then we have bishop to a6. And then after king to c7, we do have a rook to b7 movement. And then after king comes up to c8, we do see bishop to e5. And then after knight takes e5, rook takes a7 with check. The king goes back to b7. We do see the rook come back to b7 with check. And we're literally just going to be either checkmating, or the king goes back, and then we just continue to just... So just to show you this, because it's visually nice. If the king comes back here, we're literally just doing this to death. And we're just going to clear the entire second rank. It's going to suck. We're just going to clear the entire second rank. That's literally what would happen if you just did that. Like, that's the only way to avoid checkmate, is by allowing this to continue to happen. Anyway, going to the next puzzle here. This is a, what is it? It's a discovered attack. It is a discovered attack. And so that is that, guys. And that is the game. I really kind of enjoyed that game. It was interesting, kind of seeing the ups and downs. But I will be making another video here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and choose a Wesley So game. Well, like I said, I appreciate you guys coming through. Salamat Kabagan. And I will see you guys in the next video. I appreciate it.